Hey, have you ever wanted to go on an African safari, but maybe you've heard horror stories about the way people were treated, maybe the dishonesty of hunting outfits, or maybe just the uncertainty of traveling with a gun, all kept you from pulling the trigger? That was me. I always figured that an African safari would be something I wanted to do, but never actually got to do. I have family members that have gone on a couple, and to be honest, the stories I got back, they didn't do a lot to bolster my confidence and get me to pull that trigger. But about a year and a half ago, I heard about a group getting ready, and they were going to go with an outfit called Elands River Safaris. And a family member of mine was kind of in charge of putting that group together, and he had been over a couple of different times with different outfits. He had met the guys from Elands River Safari and had some really good things to say about his impressions. So I pulled the trigger and committed, and I have never ever regretted going. I know this is a little different video for this channel and for what I'm usually what I'm doing. I don't have any dogs with me today, but I had such an incredible experience. I wanted to share that so that just in case you've got a bucket list item with an African safari checklist on it, or a checklist with that as one of your items. I wanted to share my experience so that you could maybe book with them or at least check them out and see if this is the right group for you. It totally was for me. There were a couple of reasons why I never actually thought I would go on an African safari. And one of those was the fact that I had heard some really lousy accounts of some dishonesty on the part of, or maybe just bad communication. Whatever it was, it ended up costing people way more than they thought. There was some communication with professional hunters, or guides as we call them here in the U.S., and about animals that could be shot, that couldn't be shot. And when it came time to tally up, sometimes people end up owing $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more than what they went over there planning to spend. At the end of the day, I paid what I thought I would pay. There was absolutely zero surprise in my final bill. We even did some negotiating, and I traded one animal out of my package to get a different animal in, and so we made a little adjustment, but I was fully aware of what that adjustment was going to be before I pulled the trigger. And so I had total confidence in the guys at Elands River, and what the professional hunters, what the PHs were telling me in the field. I knew that was going to translate when it got back to Cameron and Lori. And that kind of confidence, it makes me feel way more comfortable out in the field. Okay, so one of the other concerns that I always had was, is it real hunting? There are outfits here in the United States that I'm aware of, some local, where they put you on an ATV, they've got big, huge fences, and they just drive the ATVs around and basically herd the animals into one corner of the ranch, or the farm, or whatever you want to call it, the enclosure, the prison, and then based on how much you're willing to pay, they say you can shoot that animal right there. Well, I grew up hunting. I grew up stalking animals. I grew up spotting and stalking or glassing, and I didn't want to I wanted a hunting experience. I have heard really bad stories about kind of that, more of a shopping experience than a hunting experience. With Elands Rivers, I didn't have any issues with that at all. Every single animal I shot was a hunting experience. When we did drive, we would drive the little buggy thing, the truck, to a determined destination. We would get out and we would start stalking. And it was just like hunting here in the U.S., but with different animals. We'd walk ways, we'd sit down, and we'd glass. One morning we walked up to the top of a peak, and we glassed, the valley, and looked and found, oh, there's a couple over there. Let's walk. Let's make our way over there. 4 miles, and put a stalk on them. The impala I shot, I crawled about 75 yards in mud and rain to get into a comfortable distance and to get with a shooting angle that I felt comfortable with. Every single hunt, every single experience over there was an actual hunt, and that was really awesome. Okay, let me pause for just a minute and say I have one other reason for wanting to do this video, and that's to announce a brand new YouTube channel My son Garrett and I, who we've loved fishing. I've loved fishing ever since I was a kid. Some of my favorite memories with my dad are fishing. My son Garrett has, he's picked up that love as well, and so we're going to start a new YouTube channel focusing on all things outdoors, but mostly fishing adventures. We're going to be looking for sturgeon, steelhead, salmon. Basically, if it's a fish and it's in the waters of Utah and Idaho, we're going to be looking for them. So the name of our YouTube channel is, and maybe you'll get a kick out of this, it's Backlash. For now, let's get back to Africa and talk about a couple other reasons why I think Elands River Safari is without a doubt the best outfitter you could possibly go with, especially if it's your first African safari. Number three, one of the reasons I was nervous about going over to Africa was just traveling that far. One, traveling that far with a gun. It's a little unnerving for me to travel with a gun. I've never ever done it before, but I've heard all kinds of nightmares that if you fly into the wrong airport or you don't fill out the paperwork just right, you can lose your gun or worse. And I wasn't really all that crazy about the idea of getting a gun, setting it up just right for an African safari, only to have it confiscated by somebody because I didn't cross a T or dot an I just right. I got all the help I needed, filling out all the proper South African paperwork so that I didn't have even a delay with my gun. It was as smooth as it could possibly be. I was super excited. Getting the guns in and out of the airport was an absolute breeze. Paperwork was all perfect. I had all of that. I knew how to fill it out. And more importantly, I had a constant contact with either Afton Lodge or with Elands River Safari, where I was able to reach out and ask questions and make sure that everything got filled out the way it needed to be. My other concern with travel was the fact that I didn't want to spend an entire trip only to have, I didn't want to spend the whole thing traveling. 4 days of a 6-day safari traveling. And so with Elands River Safari, that's not a problem because you fly into Johannesburg, and typically, at least when you fly out of Atlanta, which is where I flew out of, if you fly out of Atlanta and land in Joburg, it's too late to catch another flight to Port Elizabeth, which that's the airport nearest Elands River Safari. And so what we did is we stayed at Afton Lodge there in Johannesburg, and they put on this incredible dinner where the owners of Elands River Safari, Laurie and Cameron, met us. They had this awesome journal that they gave to each one of us that had their logo stamped onto it, our names stamped into it. And they expressed to us their concern that we not just have a successful hunt, but that we have a successful experience, and that experience went well beyond just pulling the trigger and watching an animal go down. That there was an introspective part of that journey that they wanted to see be successful as well. And when I had that experience, when I got to eat dinner with them, and my first one-on-one experience with each of them, Laurie and Cameron, it became apparent to me that it wasn't just about getting my money. They weren't just there as far as the business, that they really are trying to give you an African experience, to let you experience their country and the animals that they've come to love as they grew up hunting, and they wanted to share that. And that was a cool feeling to know that I wasn't just a paycheck for them, that they really were concerned about my overall experience. And that might be the number one reason why I would recommend going with Elands River Safari, because I don't know that you'll find that anywhere else. Maybe you will, but I know for a fact that you'll find it with these guys. That their purpose in doing what they do is to help you have the full experience, and that full experience is not just the hunt; it's also everything else. And that sentiment was felt from all of the PHs, from whether it was people cleaning up around the lodge, cooking at the lodge. It didn't matter. Everyone involved with that staff kind of conveyed that same experience, that same sentiment, that they wanted us to have a great overall experience. Check really quick and see if we're still. So if you're looking for some dog training stuff, don't worry, we'll get back to that pretty quick. But I wanted to take a minute and just give a big shout out to the guys at Elands River Safari, as well as Jim Harmer at Backfire, who's got just an awesome YouTube channel. If you're into guns, outdoors, competition shooting or hunting, any of those kinds of, anything in that realm, and you haven't already seen Jim's Backfire channel, you need to go check that out. Shout out to him because he's actually the one that got the whole ball started on his YouTube channel. He kind of just asked about interest. Who'd be interested in going to do an African safari? And to make, like I say, to make a long story short, a group of total strangers decided to go to Africa together. Jim ended up missing the flight, and so there was literally in our group as we're flying over to Africa, there's nobody in our group that knows each other. And I can't, at the end of the day, I can't think of a better group of guys that I would have be hunting with and hanging around the lodge with afterwards, discussing our stories and what happened. It was such a great mixture and such a great time.